welcome to the Trill NBA show. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose, a Nuha, aka the trillest NBA you will ever know. And I'm here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America by giving you the truth and being as real as only I can be. Happy Black History Month! Welcome back. If you follow me on social media, you know I have been struggling a little bit this past week. So hopefully this episode will come out as planned on Sunday, the second Sunday of Black History Month. But if not, if it's late, forgive me, but I have some good nuggets for you today. So before we get started on this wonderful podcast where I'm going to lay out why you should do the least if you want to win at work, the first thing I want to do is spotlight Black excellence in our segment, Corporate Warriors Spotlight. Today, I want to highlight Sabina Ewing. Sabina is Abbott's global CIO. She is the Vice President of Business and Technology Services. She was appointed to this role in November of 2020, y'all. So that was right in the midst of this pandemic. In her role, Sabina provides executive leadership on technology strategy, policy, and capabilities across the Abbott enterprise. Now, prior to joining Abbott, Sabina served as the global head business technology for Pfizer Upjohn, headquartered in Shanghai, China. Before that, she held several IT leadership roles at Pfizer, including Vice President of Corporate Functions and Business Services Business Technology, and VP of Specialty Care, Vaccines, and Oncology, BT. So I'm just blown away. I'm speechless because I have no idea what all that stuff is. It just sounds really technical and really hard. And I would be really confused trying to do her job. Sabina also earned her Bachelor of Science in Commerce with concentrations in Management Information Systems and Finance from the University of Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, and her Master of Science in Management and Systems from New York University, so NYU, y'all, in New York City. Sabina continues her commitment in identifying, developing, and retaining high-quality people in performance-driven environments. This change agent also leverages technology as a strategy tool to impact bottom-line results. So basically, y'all, she's using all those smarts to do the thing and help the peoples. So I imagine, I don't know Sabina, but I imagine she is definitely kinfolk. That's what it sounds like from everything I've read and heard about her. So I am excited to highlight Sabina Ewing, the global CIO of Abbott.
Hip, hip, hooray!
So now, and something Sabina and the rest of these corporate warriors could probably spend a lot of time talking to us about. So the title of this show is Want to Win at Work? Do the Least.
Huh?
And some people might be like, what exactly are you telling us? So listen, how many times have you heard this?
Did I not raise you for better? How many times have I told you you have to be what? You have to be what?
Twice.
What?
Twice as good.
Twice as good as them to get half of what they have.
How many times have you heard that in your life? Well, guess what? It's a lie! And today, I'm coming with the receipts. So I want to illustrate to you through some articles. Y'all know I love some good articles I found on the Google. How over and over again, we, the delegation of United States Blacks, have been told this thing, this survival strategy, if you will, that we need to execute. And we hear it over and over and over again. And it just doesn't really work. Because like, if it worked, then wouldn't we be thriving? Because let's be clear, Black excellence, can I get an amen? Yeah, like that's real. And why is Black excellence real? Because we always out here doing the most. You know, working twice as hard. Let your work speak for itself. Child, I told y'all time and time again, there are very few times where the work speaks for itself, right? And the thing is, I truly believe that it seems like the work is working. But I think what the real reason that you are having success, if you're working so hard, is not necessarily because you work twice as hard. And it's not that your work actually spoke for itself. It's that your work actually did attract advocates and sponsors. And they're taking that hard work ball for you and they're running with it. They're just doing for you what you're not doing for yourself. And so I want you to be real clear about that difference, right? And just so you know, trigger warning, this episode is going to relate to stories and articles that have stories that are going to be triggering or are triggering. So I just want to give that warning right now. Okay. Now, let's look at receipt number 1. This is a good receipt because we're going to go back in time a bit. We're going to go back to the early 70s. So picture it. It's 1973. And the Harvard Business Review convinces Edward W. Jones Jr. to write his account of being a Black manager in a large corporation. And so this article was published the July-August 1973 edition of the Harvard Business Review. And the title of the article was, What It's Like to Be a Black Manager. Okay, so I just want you to take a second and think about, like, it was the 70s and they had just killed to dead Martin Luther King and I think Malcolm X, right? And like, I think there was a lot of tension and stuff going on. And then this whole like push for affirmative action and for us to do better and be better and not be racist as a country, right? Especially because Black people were getting educated at a higher rate and trying to progress in the society and trying to get rid of Jim Crow and all these things. So when you put it in context, you have this poor Black man who goes into this company after he graduates from an HBCU. And they're like, yeah, you know, there are none of you, but we want you to come and it's going to be hard, but we think you can do it. Like literally he talks about, I was like, oh my God. I cannot imagine. And so at the time, you know, he's in this leadership program and he's going to, you know, be a manager, even though he just graduated from undergrad, and he was a division manager at the New York Telephone Company. Now, I haven't done my Googles on what exactly happened to New York Telephone Company. I can only imagine it probably got bought by one of the big companies we see now. So like either AT&T, Verizon. It's probably Verizon if I had to guess, but I haven't done the Google, so I don't really know. But again, I've got to pause and give the obligatory trigger warning, like brace yourself. Okay. So in his account, this poor soul endured being the only one in a time where whiteness had no shame to its game, right? Okay, level set. So now Edward recounts just this one part of his time at this company where he had to leave for active duty during this time. Okay. So now, after being given feedback that he need not rock the boat, so, you know, brother was smart. He was asking questions. You know, white people don't act like when we ask questions. They don't like to be challenged or feel like we are challenging them, right? Even though it might be just a clarifying question, but okay. But basically, he was told not to rock the boat. He was also told, he needs to think about how he could be like another colleague who was white. Like, you need to figure out how you can be like that person. How many of y'all have got that? I know I've gotten that feedback. Maybe you want to try to show up like Susan. Oh, I told y'all, I'm trying not to get triggered. Okay. And so he was asked to write his performance review, and he was told it would be submitted as is. So the crazy thing is, his manager at the time instructed him to be less modest and like really write all these accomplishments, because he was doing the most, and he needed to tout himself up. In fact, he says in this article, he rewrote his performance review 4 times, y'all, 4 times. And then he turned it in. His manager's like, okay, it's finally good enough. And then he leaves for active duty to serve this country. The irony. And so when Edward returned for Christmas, he found out that these fools then altered his review. So much so that in today's terms, he basically got a meets expectation. Now you gotta understand, homeboy was knocking it out the park, right? Like, so much so, his boss was like, nah, still, you gotta tell him all the things you did. You ain't bragging enough, basically, about all the things. Only to come back to, yeah, we changed this and you meet expectations. He called it a okay, but review. And I was like, oh, if that ain't meet expectations, like we're not gonna fire you yet. That's basically the review he got. Now, of course, this was not the review he submitted, and he was basically lied to, and they basically lied about his actual performance. Sound familiar, anybody? So when talking about how he felt in the situation, Jones writes, my feelings of a lack of closeness, support, and protection were renewed and amplified. It became obvious that no matter how much I achieved, how hard I worked, or how many personal adjustments I made, this system was trying to reject me. Ooh. This was 1973, y'all. Surely things got better and changed. Not. Who's child? Okay. I gotta take a break. So listen, when we get back from the break, I'm gonna share with you the updated article Edward Jones Jr. wrote for Harvard Business Review in 1986. So this is like 13 years later. We'll talk about it when we get back, right after this. And we are back. Okay, so we just talked about Edward's HBR article in 1973, where he basically gave his account of what it's like to be a Black in management. So now fast forward over a decade later, HBR is like, hey girl, hey, can you come and assess the progress of Black managers in the US? I mean, it's like 10 years later, we've had affirmative action, like all these things are happening. It's amazing. Like, come tell us about it. So Jones wrote an article titled, Black Managers, A Dream Deferred. So to write this article, Jones gathered 3 years of research, including hundreds of interviews of men, women, whites, Blacks, other minorities, senior, middle, and junior managers, and professionals in management, education, consulting, psychology, sociology, psychiatry, and medicine. So like all the things, right? I mean, his research included more than 30 Black executives, each earning at least $100,000 a year, and more than 200 Black managers, mostly MBAs. So caveat, one thing you need to know about Mr. Jones here is that he went to Harvard Business School, which is how they knew about him, to ask him to do this. At least this is the story I'm telling myself, because I don't know Jones, and I did find his LinkedIn, and I am trying to connect with him. I would love to have him on the show, God willing. Also, if he's still alive. We don't even know that, because again, he went to HBR from 70 to 72. He graduated from Harvard Business School in 1972, y'all. Yeah. So he did all this research. And again, so this is article number 2, 13 years later. And all I can say is this whole article is triggering. So I'm not even going to really bring in quotes, because after 13 years, it's still the same shit. And like logically, I know, because then after nearly 50 years, it's still the same shit. So like, who are we fooling? In fact, in the article, he mentions the EEO data. So the EEO is the Equal Employment Opportunity. So commission, they left the C off. But the EEO data from 1982, where 4.3% of office managers were Black. The most recent year I can find from this data set from the EEO is 2013. So from 1982 to 2013. So talking like 31 years later, right? So it was 4.3%. It is now up to 6.7%, which happened to be slightly down from the high in 2008 of 6.9. And then I went looking for like even more, because it's 2022, right? So like that was 10 years ago. So the most recent statistic I could find was from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And in 2016, they have management occupations for Blacks at 7.2%. And for, everybody, it was like a little over 11%. So again, Blacks are under indexed in management roles in companies. But we already knew this. But it's nice to have the data to tell us what we already know, that basically they promoted 5 Negroes. Yay. So what happened to Edward W. Jones Jr.? Well, from my research, which probably was like in the middle of the night on Google for a couple hours, the article itself says that after he left New York Telephone, and so my assumption is he left New York Telephone to get his MBA, or like it seems from the 2 articles that they sponsored him to get his MBA. And so he got his MBA. Good for you. Make him pay for it. But then he left and moved to AT&T. So what I don't know is, did you leave New York Telephone and go to AT&T, or did AT&T buy New York Telephone? That part's not clear. I would love to talk to this man. Like, love. But he went to AT&T, where he oversaw nationwide strategic planning for media markets and initiated the company's satellite strategy, which I'm sure in 1970s and 80s was like cutting edge, mind-blowing stuff, right? And so in 1984, Jones formed Corporate Organizational Dynamics Incorporated, a consulting firm specializing in organizational effectiveness. He is now writing a book titled Managing the Dynamics of Difference. So this is information that came out in 1986. So I can't find this Managing the Dynamics of Difference. Like, I would love to read this. And like, is this book? Where is it? Can I have it? I need to read it, right? But I did find the company online, but when I called the phone number, it was out of service. So I'm looking for Mr. Jones. I hope he's still alive and well and that I can have a conversation with him because, honey, the tea that I want. I want all the tea. So if anybody happens to know Edward W. Jones Jr. or any of his offspring, please reach out to the show. Like, connect me. I would love to interview him. Because from the 70s until today, you know, he was talking about how all these Black people were always like, I'm working hard. But it was always the same information. I mean, it just looks like this is not working for us from then to now. I mean, let's go to receipt number 2. And again, trigger warning, okay? So if you read this article, just warning you. So I got this article from Digiday, which is a company that reports and is entrenched in the industry of media, right? And so they released a report in June of 2020. So this was about a month after George Floyd was murdered, right? So this article is about the Bleacher Report, which is a media company dedicated to the intersection of sports and culture. So, you know, 2 things that are very driven by Black excellence. I mean, you know it, I know it, we know it, they know it, everybody know it. That's why everybody mad. But whatever, that's for another day. Okay, ADD side note. Bringing it back. Okay, so I'm going to refer to Bleacher Report as BR because that's like what people refer to it as. So in BR's New York offices, like most companies now, there is a great divide in the makeup of worker bees and leaders. So most of the Black employees are the worker bees. So there's a sprinkle, a pinch, a speck, actually. There's a speck or 2 in leadership. But in this case, these content creators and people who keep, you know, the lights on and they're actually producing the content that drives this media company. These are a lot of people of color, a lot of Black people. And they were actually on the 2nd floor. That's where they worked. And then on the 3rd floor, the leadership was, and so most of them, the vast majority of them were white. And a lot of them were male, but mostly all white. And so very, very few Black leaders exist at the Bleacher Report. Now, mind you, this was 2020. I just don't have a lot of faith that they've changed. I did not find anything to follow up to say that they've made like these great strides. When you look at all the rest of these companies who made all these promises and put all these Black Lives Matter to us too posts back in 2020, basically they ain't did shit. So I just am under the assumption, and y'all let me know if I'm wrong. Okay, I will say I'm wrong, but I'm under the assumption that these motherfuckers ain't changed neither. So here we are. I mean, it was like, if there was an office version of Other Side of the Tracks, the people that work for BR, they were living it, right? Because they literally were separated by floors. So now you can only imagine when, you know, the whole world explodes and realizes racism's bad. And everybody's going into this, you know, okay, we're going to try to address the painfully obvious thing that everyone has been, you know, staring at and ignoring. Like, how could you not feel when you move from one floor to the other, the difference? Like, but then everybody doesn't say anything. And then George Floyd dies and everybody's like, oh my God, the optics are bad. This is bad. Oh my God. And so it was already painfully obvious, but I guess George Floyd dying just made it hurt so bad you can't ignore it now. So it went from, oh, I stub my toe every day to like, oh, I slit off my arm. Okay. And so, as with every other company, the conversations began, right? Leadership's like, oh my God, what do we do? And then they put all this labor on the Black people that work there. You know, ain't paying them anymore, but they're going to ask them for answers. Like, can you fix this, Black people? Teach us. We're so horrible now. We know now we're horrible. Child, you been horrible. You knew you was horrible. You just didn't. Anyway, let me not even go off on that tangent. Okay. So what struck me the most about this article were the following two quotes from current employees. Well, they were current in 2020. So the first quote. I've seen white employees enter the company after me and get promoted before me for having less responsibility, bringing in less revenue, but getting rewarded more. What do I have to do? Spoiler alert. Do less. Don't do more. They did less. Do less. So the other quote is, being a Black professional, you have to work twice as hard, sometimes 3 times as hard, and still not feel like you're getting there. Boo-boo, that's not a feeling. Like, you ain't there. Like, either you there or you ain't. But here we are. So now, said it again. You have to work twice as hard. So you're working twice, 3 times as hard to get nowhere. Let that sink in. And when we get back from the break, I'm going to tell you what the most important thing is from all that I've just told you. I think you know what it is. Do less. When we come back. And now we have the most important thing. All right, so hopefully I have laid out some good receipts today so that you understand that we have been taught to do the most, right? Work 2 times, 3 times. Hell, I've even heard 10 times as hard. But in actuality, that shit's not working, and we need to do something different. But actually, if we want to get ahead, we have to start doing the least. What? I know, but hear me out. In Mr. Jones' follow-up article where, the Black manager's dreams were deferred, Lord have mercy. They still deferred. I am one. It's deferred, y'all. It's deferred. All right. He says, to get ahead, a person depends on informal networks of cooperative relationships, friendships, help from colleagues, customers, and superiors, and developmental assignments are the keys to success. Outsiders, or people treated as outsiders, no matter how talented or well-trained, rarely do well. Black managers feel they are treated as outsiders, and because of the distance that race produces, they don't receive the benefit of the networks and relationships. Few win bosses as mentors. Moreover, they rarely get the vote of confidence from superiors that helps them to move up step by step and allows them to learn the business. These assignments would give them the expertise, exposure, and knowledge necessary for promotion to top posts. This man wrote this in 1986. And when I tell you, I was like, well, goddamn, still the same shit. Not nary a time in there Did he say you had to work twice as hard? So this is the most important thing that you need to take away from this episode. In order to win at work, you need to spend your energy almost exclusively on the following things. Number one, you need to work to become an insider. And you do that by building relationships. It's not 1973 or even 1986. We actually do have a new day, and you have to learn how to build these relationships, especially within the construct of whiteness and how whiteness plays out in your workplace. You have to learn how to navigate that. And it is now totally doable, guys. Totally doable. And that is the foundation of all my coaching. Now, second, you have to focus on top priority projects and visibility. So you have to focus on the top 2 or 3 priorities. Do not split hairs and like, everything, I gotta do everything. One of the things that I see most often with us, because we're over here trying to do the most, is we have the inability to not do the most. Like we feel like we have to, if we don't, like we always feel like if we let one ball drop, they're going to take that one ball and blow it up and make it more than it is. And I get that feeling. Like I totally understand that feeling. But the way around that is through communicating very clearly, these are my priorities. This is what I'm going to focus on. This is what adds the most value to the business. This is what we're doing. Are you aligned? Is there something I need to do different? And I understand that sometimes priorities change and they change very quickly. You have to be adept at always gaining continuous alignment on what the priorities are so you can stop wasting time on trying to get every single thing done, which is unrealistic, and keep them focused on the things you are doing and not what you're not doing, because you need to create room, space, and time to do number one, become an insider. It takes time and effort to build those relationships. So half your time at least should be on building relationships, and the other half of your time should be driving your visibility through your priority projects. Yes, I know. Here you thought you was just gonna do everything and do Black excellence. No, because the man said outsiders or people treated as outsiders, no matter how talented or well-trained. So no matter how much Black excellence you bring into the table, you rarely do well. Because doing well is a direct correlation to the level of likability that you have in the organization. Ain't that some shit? I know. It's fucked up, ain't it? It sure is. Oh, goodness. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do a good job. Oh, absolutely do a good job. But like, you just doing the work ain't gonna get you nowhere. Because we've seen this. Like, you work 2 times, 3 times, 10 times as hard. We're getting nowhere. So stop doing that. What's the definition of insanity? Okay. Now, the other thing that's very important within this building relationships, the thing is, we think, oh, well, I gotta be liked by everybody. You don't have to be liked by everybody, girl. You don't even want everybody to like you. You want to manage up. Because those are the people that get to promote you. Those are the people deciding to promote you. Focus on them. Get your shit done. And understand, sometimes as a Black person, especially a Black woman, getting shit done means you're going to make white people uncomfortable, which means you're going to ruffle feathers, which means ain't everybody going to like you. And that's okay if you stay focused on the relationship and the narrative up. Because when you do that, it just becomes very difficult for those people who don't like you to talk bad about you in front of the influential people. Because now then they look crazy if they talking bad about somebody this person likes. It's like, if you come tell me my best friend opened up a can of dog food and ate it, and mind you, she could have really ate it, and that could have really happened. But if you come tell me that, I'm going to be looking at you like, why the fuck would you tell me that? That's foul. Like, what does that matter? Like, they're going to like defend you because you've built the relationship, you've built the likability, you've made yourself an insider with that person. So I want you to think through that, because I know we struggle with this. Like, this is our Achilles heel. And I am here this year, the year of Paid and Promoted, to break that down for us, because we can't continue allowing the fear that we have around what they might try to do to us to let that dictate how we show up in these spaces, because we are not going to win if we continue that behavior. So I want you to sit down and think of a plan of how you're going to put together, like, how am I going to become an insider in my organization? Like, what people do I need to connect with? How am I going to connect with them? I want to hear your thoughts, right? Because this is important. This is how you win at work. And it's not by working 2 or 3 times as hard. It's actually doing less work and focusing on building your insider network. All right, if you need some help or advice about a specific situation at work, go to trillandba.com/coaching to schedule a 45-minute consultation with me to strategize and walk through your specific work situation. In addition, you can always email me, guys. I love when you guys email me at ask@trillandba.com. I'm happy to either answer your question or I can connect you to the right person if I don't have the answer. And that's very plausible. I am not perfect. I am a mere mortal, okay? Again, that's trillandba.com/coaching to schedule a 45-minute consultation, and ask@trillandba.com to submit your question or concern. Listen, guys, happy Black History Month. I love you. Try to stay sane out here. You can do this. This year, we are going to get on the journey of Paid and Promoted. So until next time, keep it trill. The Trill and BA Show is a Fair World Corp LLC production. Executive produced by Felicia and Rose Inuha. Sound design and editing by Chris Mann with Podshaper. Theme music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.